Okay, beautiful. Welcome everybody, guys. Welcome to Pounds for Breakfast. Now listen, if you were with us yesterday, if you were with us in Pounds for Breakfast, if you were with us in Dollars for Lunch, if you were with us in Pips for Dinner, we had a massive session yesterday. Yes, you know what time it is, and we absolutely smashed the market. So if you're a part of our session, specifically yesterday evening, I just want to see a massive let's go in the comments, right? We absolutely dominated the markets yesterday. In all three sessions, we closed out in some really good profit, but really last night, we absolutely smashed things through the roof, right? So we'll be covering what exactly happened. And remember, the big opportunities come and sit today as we jump into and have a look at what we're going to be experiencing as we jump into NFP preparations for Friday. Now, yes, it is NFP Friday. We are going to be trading that live, and that's something you definitely want to make sure that you are going to be a part of. Now, something special we're going to be doing for this particular session coming up Friday is we're going to be having two sessions for Friday. Right. The first session is going to be a special session for everybody that has live accounts over the $250 mark, right? Meaning I'm going to be spending 30 minutes with you preparing your setups for NFP. Then we're going to have a public broadcast. This is going to be free for absolutely everybody. And we're going to be starting 15 minutes before that NFP announcement comes through. So again, if you have $250 or more in your live account, we are going to have a special session where I'm going to take you through a very specialized order setup. And this is going to be step by step setting you up so that we can make it rain as we trade NFT. We want to wrap up this week big. We want to wrap up this week in a massive way. So that is going to be the two sessions. So to confirm, everybody that has $250 or more in their live account, we're going to be starting prior to NFP, a special show. It's going to be limited only to a couple clients. We're going to do some advanced setups. I'm going to show you my setups, my preparation for NFP. And then for everybody else, we're going to have a free public broadcast that's going to be at 2:15 tomorrow, 15 minutes before NFP. Our setups will be there, and then we will trade NFP live with everybody else in the world. So if you want to be a part and parcel of that, obviously make sure you have more than $250 in your live account, and you will automatically get the link to that special session. Now, this is in line with some of the new changes that are going to be coming. We're going to be having specialized sessions for those of you who have those bigger accounts to obviously give you a little bit more of that one-on-one time. We're seeing a lot of requests from clients to have this specific mentorship set up, advanced sections, and we're going to be starting that this week with NFP and see how that goes. In addition to that, we obviously had a pretty amazing week thus far already, but again, it's the first week of the brand new month, right? We're going to be bringing the heat for the balance of November. Again, looking at the end of this week, we're going to start to see those daylight savings times shift in the US, bringing our dollars to lunch open with the US open, right? So again, at the moment, the US mostly opens around the country what we see as 2 p.m. in the afternoon. If you're in GMT +2, it's going to shift to 3 p.m. Moving from next week. So meaning our dollars for lunch is going to start a little bit earlier, and we're going to have a double edition in our dollars for lunch, right? The first part is we're going to trade the US open, and then we're going to trade the New York Stock Exchange open. So we're going to see a ton more volatility, and it's one of my favorite trading sessions in the whole year, right? Is when we see this DST shift and it aligns where we get those two massive areas of volatility in the markets all together. So just a quick shout out to everybody that's with us. And if you were in all three sessions yesterday, if you're part of our MVT, Most Valued Trader team, then go ahead and just put up your hands so just so I can see all of our absolute veterans. You guys are absolute machines. We were streaming for well over 6 hours yesterday. So well over 6 hours of trading. So if you were stuck in with us, go ahead and pop your hand up in the air. You guys are absolutely amazing, right? So just a quick shout out, Reith Witherspoon, Neil Pregasan, Laluma, Michael Chad, Taylor, Hey, Peter, Wylan, let's see, Mackenzie, Alvin, Calvin, Tyler, Kenny, Nobile, Forex Made Easy, Graham, Gawain, Alvin 4C, Mackenzie, Luke, Lewis, let's see else, Nashil, Mark is in the house, Maritz, Nadir, Fabian, John, Nico Fenta, welcome guys, Garrett, let's see who else. Might have missed a few people there, but just a massive welcome. If you guys were all those sessions, and you've got your hand up, just a massive, massive congratulations, right? Again, we did a lot of trading yesterday, a lot of streaming, and one of the most important things we can end with an outcome is obviously learning something. That is a purpose of Globex 360 Live TV, is not only to make the lives of every single one of our clients easier, but to give the best level of market understanding, research in what is busy happening in the world. And so if we end a day where you've made money, and we had clients that were in the comments and in the chat yesterday that were doubling, tripling, quadrupling accounts live in our sessions, if you've made money and learned something from a session, then that is exactly what we aim to achieve. We're going to be bringing the heat. There's going to be a lot of new things coming, as I've obviously mentioned, but just a very, very successful trading day yesterday. We pushed the limits. Today, it's going to be a little bit of a slower day. We have some fundamental data that we're going to look at in a second, but I'm more going to be focusing on resting and recharging for NFP tomorrow. It's going to require absolute diligence. As you guys have seen, if you were part of yesterday's shows, risk management is key. And I saw those who didn't necessarily apply risk management, right? Doesn't mean that if you double your risk, you're going to have double the reward, right? If you double your risk and your risk isn't there, you can end up not fully benefiting from these market swings and or moves. So again, today for me is going to be about rest and relaxation, and really just centering my mind around what do we want to be doing for NFP tomorrow. And like I said, we'll have that special session with everybody that has $250 or more. We're going to spend half an hour together. I'm going to take your questions. We're going to have your questions come through. We're going to analyze, answer, and then set up those advanced orders. And then 2:15 tomorrow, which is the public broadcast. That's when the public will join us. We'll have our orders set up. We'll sit back, we'll relax, we'll enjoy it, and we'll smash the markets for NFP tomorrow. We're going to see if we can do what we did last night all over again tomorrow for that NFP session. So if you're excited about that, let me know. But I am super, super excited. Fabian saying, we killed the markets last night. Fabian, I hope the wife and the family are going to let you spend a little bit more of that grocery money, because it definitely seems that it's working out for you. Super proud of every single one of you that joined us in last night's session. Okay, now before I get too excited and ramble on for all too much longer, we're going to jump in and have a look at what is happening in the world from a news perspective. And there's quite a bit to talk about, right? I do expect markets to be in a little bit of a daze based on what happened yesterday. So I'm not too stressed about big moves this morning. I think if anything, we'll see New York Stock Exchange start to have some corrections based on the movements we had yesterday. But regardless, we're obviously going to jump in and have a look at what the world is saying from a news perspective, right? And as we obviously jump closer into some of those fundamental data points. Okay, so I think the big item from a local news perspective is going to be that, you know, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, has basically said that, you know, our new finance minister may have underestimated, right, some of the risks in his medium-term proposal, right? There's a lot of discussion saying that, you know, the proposal might be a little bit too optimistic. And so, you know, reality check is a need. And again, guys, we're fairly used to this, right? We're fairly used to, you know, a new change, a new face. And this is fairly typical for not only governments, but countries, any form of new leadership, is that new leadership is under quite a bit of pressure to come in and tell everybody what they want to hear. And that's great. That's amazing. But now we need to see, right, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting, right? So we want to see, do we see that proof? Is the pudding legit, right? Because the pudding that's been proposed is that there's going to be big changes. We're going to turn around this country. We obviously need to see those things come into fruition. That's what really, really counts in this particular moment, right? Quickly looking at the pound before we get into the US data, is the dollar slumps because Powell literally disappointed on everybody that was hoping for a pivot, right? I was also hoping for a pivot. I was hoping that the Powell would give us an indication that interest rates would start to taper off. He would have a dovish approach, and he didn't. He was extremely, extremely hawkish. He was extremely firm on his position. Now, our initial forecast of what we thought could happen on indices was correct. Again, our sentiment was that the markets would see this as a positive thing. In his speech, that all changed, right? Luckily for our setups yesterday, and I'll show you this, we had an outcome for both events. We had an outcome for buy as an outcome for a saw, and that's obviously massive. Mackenzie's saying he got his credit, massive. Well done there. That was obviously given out yesterday. Excuse me. Okay, so looking at US markets, right? Obviously, there's going to be a ton of data surrounding, you know, this interest rate announcement. But really, an article that sums it up quite nicely is that, you know, Powell, in terms of a summary, says that 75 basis point hike change, right, for the future is very premature, right, about pausing or reducing any significant way. And again, that's what essentially scared off the markets last night and caused some of that big sell side moves. Now, again, last night we saw roundabout in the region of 15 to 20,000 pips of movement in front of our eyes in the space of an hour. So it was just absolutely massive and absolutely big, right? As we jump into some of the fundamentals, looking at the day, right, just a quick S&P 500 summary on what we're seeing on that heat map. And I just want to point out to you guys that the markets look like there's bloodshed. And again, that is all due to Powell, right? This is all due to Powell. Tesla down 5.64%. That's one big outlier. Meta down 4.89%. Amazon 4.83. Everything is currently sitting in that 3 to 4 negative range. And again, this is all Powell, right? This is the power that Powell has over the market, right? That is the Fed. They control the dollar, and what they say goes, right? And the rest of the world has to follow. So again, that's why we focus on these big events. And when we predict these things are going to be massive, there's past dates that really comes into that. So again, you want to be part of some of these big events. You want to be part of some of these special live trading sessions. Go ahead and make sure you get your live account opened, get your account funded, so you don't miss these big events. You stop hearing about it from everybody else. You stop seeing screenshots from everybody else, and you can be a part and a parcel of that. Now, just remember, again, never to be taken as financial advice or market suggestions. This is purely for educational entertainment purposes only. Okay, so having a look at the actual fundamental data that we are going to be getting out today, a lot of data on the euro and the pound, right? So our morning/afternoon is going to be dominated by pound and euro data. And this is for you to follow if it's something that you wish. I'm not going to be focusing too much on the euro and the pound because we already have, that headwind on the dollar, that weakening dollar that I obviously want to, that tailwind on the dollar, the strengthening dollar based on what Powell has said. But we are going to obviously jump into that in a second and have a look at those effects on actual price action in the markets themselves. So that's where we're going to start off this morning. We're going to start off with some euro dollar data, but we're obviously going to have a look at where that dollar index is currently sitting and what we have planned for this move and what we have planned for the markets, right? Yes, 100%. So Nick is asking, is Twitter delisting? Yes. So as part of Elon's deal, right? Elon's deal was to not only just, Elon was an existing shareholder in Twitter, but his purchase of Twitter basically bought it as a private firm. So he bought it at that $44 a share. I think it was $44 or $42, but in essence, that was tantamount to that 44 billion, right? So by purchasing the company, he basically is the new owner of Twitter as a private firm. And again, his plan is to convert that to the X Everything app, which is essentially an amalgamation of social media, of search media, of just general everything, right? So very, very interesting on Twitter. Definitely something you want to keep your eyes on. Bank of England set to interest rate by 75 basis points to 3%. Yes, 100%. Laluma saying Bank of England, same sort of story. BOE is also expected to do an interest rate increase. And we're going to see these trends across the board. So if you were part and parcel of our Pips for Dinner last night, the trends we've just observed, these are going to be trends that you can utilize and capitalize on in almost every interest rate announcement. So again, this is where we speak about preparation meeting opportunity, right? In a season like this where interest rates are increasing, we saw yesterday an article saying things are going to get very, very tough in South Africa the next 4 to 6 months. If we read about war, if we read about all these negative things, only those who don't have the skill to be prepared see it as negative. As a trader, when I see these things, yes, obviously I don't want to see interest rate increases. I don't want to see things get more expensive around the country. I don't want to see fuel go up, obviously. But when you see an opportunity, you know how to capitalize on that opportunity through tools and skills of trading, those things that were negative are no longer negative. We start to hear and see these things, and what happens, right? In the back of our minds, we can start to see exactly that, right? Opportunity with preparation, those two meet, this equals success, right? So something we just want to obviously pay attention to. So any sort of interest rate increase, any fundamental data point, there's enough information there in the past data to obviously capitalize on it moving into the future. So having a look at the dollar index, this is initially what happened yesterday. So initially we saw that massive sell-off again, this was our prediction for the start and for the interest rates announcement that Powell gave, and that essentially caused a sell-off on the dollar. And the second his speech started and his tone was quite aggressive, I started off by saying his tone is not good. He really does not seem happy, and this doesn't seem like it's going to be, very soft and loving kind of questions and answer sessions. We then saw the dollar taking off based on that. Now, again, right, a lot of people ask, well, if the interest rate is increasing, it's harder and harder to lend money. Why does the dollar increase in value, right? And again, there's going to be a lot of different reasons for that, but ultimately it means that, the dollar is the world's reserve currency, right? So when the Federal Reserve raises those base interest rates, it has an effect on bonds, it has an effect on treasuries, and it has an effect on yields, right? So there are a few different reasons for that, but stock markets historically have always liked interest rate increases. This year, right, this season is the first season in history that I can find in the past 20, 30 years, recession or post-recession or in recession, that these interest rates have actually had this positive effect on the local currency and negative effect on Wall Street, right? So we're starting to see those effects. I can tell you now, the next interest rate increase, if some of that fundamental data gets better, we will then start to see some real big bull moves as we start to hear if these interest rates will taper off. Now remember, we have another interest rate decision set for December, and even though he was very hawkish and he needs to be strong because he's the leader of the Federal Reserve, he's the head and the chair, if we start to see fundamental data improving and in line with what the Federal Reserve is aiming to achieve, then we could see the next Fed interest rate being something very similar to a taper in those interest rates, right? That's going to be fairly important. NFP this Friday is going to be a huge indicator of how well of a job they've done in terms of the current interest rates decisions. So NFP is going to be huge. There's an opportunity for a big upset on NFP. There's going to be a lot of volume. I can absolutely see it. I can feel it. It's coming. And again, you want to be prepared for that. Make sure you got more than $250 in your live account. We'll have a special session half an hour before the public joins us at 2:15 tomorrow afternoon. Okay, so the dollar ultimately took off and took advantage of that interest rate announcement. Now, having a look at the trade for yesterday, again, there is not going to be a ton of movement in the market for this London Open, and I can just see that based on the markets, the volume, and just the general sentiment that we've seen here. And this is what our setups looked like yesterday. This is obviously a 30-minute. There's a lot more detail here, but initially we started that buy process on the breakout of this market. And it looks distorted, right? Because there are thousands of pips here from a candle perspective. We are currently looking at US30. This was my preferred instrument for tomorrow or yesterday's interest rate announcement. And it will most likely be my preferred instrument for NFP2. We may also deal with the NASDAQ, as well as currencies, gold, so on and so forth. But ultimately, we caught that buy breakout that ran for 4,500 pips. We got a little bit of a reversal. We had some trailing stops here, as well as some pending orders just lower. So our buys, right, got closed out in a massive amount of profit, and that sell ended up materializing. I caught some sells, but extremely volatile. Pulled back, closed them out, pulled back, closed them out, and then manually had to re-enter. And even from a late entry perspective, right, markets have still continued almost 7,000 pips towards the downside. Yes, I said 7 with 1,000 at the end of that, right? So massive amounts of pips in the market, right? So again, if you were in those trades from yesterday, then you should absolutely be smiling because markets just went ballistic, right? Now, again, it's going to be a slower morning because of those moves, right? Anytime we see a massive amount of volatility and a shocking to the markets, to the system, we generally see the markets try to figure out what it is that they need to do. And it's usually from session to session. So example, if the shock happens on the pound or the euro, it would require the next euro or the pound session to start to stabilize. So example, the shock happened on the US Open. We will only see those stabilizations or those next moves happen this afternoon in the dollars for lunch. So stick around for that one. If you've got your $100 account, right? If you don't get an email in the course of this morning because we want to move away from the email system, we will still send them, but we want to get away from it. Then you just need to log into your client area. You just go there by going down to the web, the link site in the website and the link down below. Go into your client area. And on the left-hand side, you'll see their live TV. If you got $100 or more, you'll see pounds for breakfast, you'll see dollars for lunch, and any of our special sessions that we're having at Pips for Dinner will be there. But as an example, for tomorrow, we will obviously email out the link for that special session for $250 or more on your live account. So you want to be part and parcel of that one. So again, I'm not expecting some massive moves this morning. We will dive in and just have a look on a minute what we're seeing here, and you can kind of see what I'm saying. We started and got a little bit of volatility here at the 9 o'clock mark. So a little bit of a market, a little bit of a range. And remember, we are still going to get those movements at the 9 mark for a couple reasons, right? The first reason being that the world is still, even though London has switched over to from the DST, right, the rest of the world that still trades these sessions, right, will still be placing orders and looking for price action in these ranges. So even though we're starting our sessions a little bit later to accommodate for a 10 o'clock open, the world will still be reacting and there will still be moves, and these moves will feather out as more of the volume moves to that 10, 11 o'clock mark every single morning. But we started to get, a bit of volume in at that point in time, and now we're just starting to basically build up in volume to the top side. So I don't think there's anything massive here from a trade perspective. This again is still USD. We're currently looking at a 1 minute time frame, and anything, I think the real test is going to be, do we end up getting over that trend line? So looking at the 500 period moving average, that may end up pulling back to somewhere around about that zone. We could utilize a Fibonacci level. So right, if US30 builds back up to that 61.8, even potentially a push to the 78.6 is also still likely. So a sharp push up to 78.6, $32,189 on US30 Dow Jones. That could be a continuation to the downside. But at the same time, there is a very big move that is already had in this market, right? So, any sort of retracement could be due. And I just want to also point out the fact that you are aware we have a bigger market structure that is more clearly visible on 15 minutes. And that market structure does need to have some sort of retest to stay valid. So for my setup, I literally have at this moment in time, I believe it is, if anybody's still in their cells, right, and you want to manage your trailing stop, I'm currently running at 20,000 points trailing stop. So I'm running at 2,000 pip trailing, and that was as low of that market push. And I will literally just adjust myself back over into support, into resistance. And should markets come back up and have a retest, then we can obviously see that continuation to the downside. But for today, I don't have any specific direction that I'm looking for. I'm already in a sell and I have no reason to now go ahead and add additional risk to my account. Yesterday's session, we obviously made quite a few trades. I ended up switching accounts while we were listening to Powell. We had a very successful trade in terms of that buy. We caught some sells, but I ended up switching accounts to a smaller account to try and see that I could isolate that risk to a smaller account. And even on a much smaller account, the much smaller account size, I wanted to see what is the possibility and how much could one make should they have reasonable amounts of risk on a smaller account. Now I just want to point out that I did exceed 10% on this account. I was closer to the 20% mark once I moved my stop loss. So again, still far exceeding, 4 times exceeding the risk I should have potentially taken. Just want to obviously mention that do as we teach, and not always necessarily as we do sometimes. But I just wanted to point that out. And from that perspective, I just wanted to show you guys really quickly that, even based on that account, right, that account was $420, $430, right, the single trade, right? And again, please bear in mind, I did exceed my own risk profile. The single trade on a $400 account is currently running $2,800 in profit, right? So, well over 5x, almost 6x, so almost 500% ROI on an account in a single move. And again, that is why some of these high risk, big move events can be worth it. But again, without stop losses, without risk management, it would basically just eat you up and spit you out of that market, right? So that is why we're going to start to have a little bit more tailored approaches to some of these bigger events. And again, being NFP, we're going to set up with our clients that have more than $250. Under $250, it really makes it difficult to trade some of these big events because your risk is going to just be so much higher even with the smallest potential trade, right? Even with a 0.10, let's say on US30, you're going to be at 30-40% of your account's risk on a single trade to place a significant stop loss, to place a stop loss in the correct area. Because remember, just by placing a stop loss, that's not enough. Placing it correctly is just as important. So if you're entering a small trade, a minimum trade size, and your stop loss is still not in the correct area, and that stop loss still exceeds 10 to 15% of your account, right, it's not going to be a pleasant experience for you, right? You're going to find yourself opening trades, closing trades, opening multiple trades, and that's obviously extremely difficult, and that's obviously something, you know, I personally would not do, and that's why the minimum rate there is $250 to get some of these more advanced setups, because that is closer to the minimum requirement. I generally suggest to people, we get a lot of questions about that, I generally say $1,000 is that sweet spot where you can actually exercise risk in a proper way. How does one join the Telegram group? Forex Made Easy. So literally it's the second link in the description down below. You'll see you can join our Global 360 live TV Telegram group. Now, we will be opening up additional groups, and that's great. Thank you for bringing that up. We will be opening additional groups, right, for those of you who have bigger accounts. So we will be finalizing those different packages, and there will be separate groups for those different account sizes. The bigger groups will be open, meaning you can chat, you can ask questions, you can provide screenshots, we can interact in a much more personal way on the bigger groups for the bigger account sizes. So we are hoping to finalize that extremely soon, potentially before the weekend is even here. So that's obviously going to be a big one. So I don't expect to see much movement. Again, as I've said a little bit earlier, in the markets for today. Look at what, oh, there we go. So exactly as I just said, right, a 78.6 push, right? The market's just pushed out the 32,190 while I was busy speaking, and essentially rejected off that level, and may end up just continuing towards the downside. For me, again, as I said, I'm in a sell. I've no reason to add to those trades. Already got a really great trade on, and I've no need to dilute some of that risk or take on additional risk on a day where I know I'm saving everything for NFP. So when we talk about keeping cash in pocket or being cash in pockets, it simply means looking at opportunities in the market, taking what is very obvious and obviously what things that meet your risk requirements, your trade requirements, but being cash in pocket just means that you're preparing for a big event. And that's specifically what I'm doing. I'm reconfiguring some of my accounts, and usually what I'll do before a big event is I will move money into a trading account specifically for that event. I will never go in all in with an account that is valuable to me, or you know, if I'm looking at an event and I'm saying to myself, okay, the goal is to make $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 for that event, whatever the case may be, then I will move in an amount of money that works to be able to achieve that outcome, right? I'll never take an account and say, I'm going to, you know, I want to make 10x this account and I'm going to risk it all, right? That's just generally not how we do things. So I will start those preparations today to get my account and my house in order for you guys. Now, what I'll also be doing for the advanced session before the NFP tomorrow is I'm look at the average account size over $250 for the clients that we invite. And what I will do is I'll create and make sure that my account matches the similar type of value. So when I'm entering trades, right, to make it a little bit easier, if I'm entering a one lot, I'm going to enter all my trades with the same risk management that I would generally apply on all my other trades. So if you're unsure about what lot size to use, if you're unsure about how big your stop loss, how big your take profit should be, I will be trading with similar account sizes to those of you who are part of these advanced sessions. So if we're in the super advanced session, it's $10,000 more. We will then obviously utilize $10,000 and apply appropriate risk management. If it's the free sessions, I'll use whatever account that I want. But if it's the bare minimum, if it's $100 plus sessions, I'll try to stick to $100 or $200 for those sessions, and we will scale accordingly to make it something easier to obviously do the math and or understand. But again, our new platform is due very soon, and that will make trading risk management, a lot of these setups, extremely easy. Example yesterday was very technical in terms of those moves. Those moves happened exceptionally quickly, right? And even enjoying these high volatility sessions, I struggled to keep up with how quickly markets are moving. Our new platform makes that absolutely smooth as butter. That whole experience is just smooth as butter, right? We can set up a lot more intricate structures, and we can set that our trades obviously trigger based on a lot more complex requirements. And that is really going to be a game changer. This is something that I've enjoyed using, I've seen the benefits of, and I literally cannot wait for every single one of you to obviously have that. The new platform is going to be available to every single one of our clients around the world. So again, you want to be part of that future, make sure you get your account open, featured, verified, documents uploaded, get that account deposited. I can promise you there's only one place to be. And if you're not here, I don't know what you're doing, right? There's a million reasons why and so many more. Okay. So I don't think we're going to see much moves this morning. Again, we got that little bounce there. It's definitely trying to retest at 78.6. If anything, right, if you aren't in any trades whatsoever and you're thirsty for the markets or whatever the case may be, then yeah, you might want to consider looking at the only other setup I can see here that could be a long position would be, right, a continuation on that 88.2, a break out of that 88.2, and on a 1 minute time frame, just drawing out this rising structure. We broke it, retested, retesting a second time. If we break through this previous high, right, we very well may go into a bull state of market and chase some sort of deeper retracement from this massive sell-off, right? So we very well could do a retest, and the retest could be in the region of about 8,000 pips, 10,000. No, that can't be correct. 1,000 pips run towards the top side. Again, there's a minute time frame. It's a little bit distorted because of this massive move here, and that's on US 30. So if anything, if you're looking for a setup and you aren't in any trades, if you've missed all of our live sessions, whatever the case may be, and you really want to make some trades in for today, then I would definitely say that's going to be a good opportunity for you to potentially take a look at. Now, for everybody else, guys, if you have your $100 or more, then you know what time it is. We're obviously going to be all eyes on the dollars for lunch this afternoon. I'm not looking at adding any extra risk to my position. I'm purely looking at dollars for lunch this afternoon. Is market going to give away a little bit of a hint as to what it might be thinking for NFP? I'll be sharing with you guys my thoughts on the NFP for tomorrow in this dollars for lunch session. But again, most of my effort, I'm going to be taking time off. I'm going to be clearing my mind, making sure I've got some time in the gym, get some good sleep. NFP tomorrow is going to require everything from us in order to capitalize on that, right? So it's not going to just be a lazy trade, markets move, let's buy it. No, we're going to do some very technical setups because there's a lot of outcomes that could happen for tomorrow's NFP. If anything, we could see big whipsaws in tomorrow's session. So it's going to be required of us to obviously map that out and make sure we don't get smacked around by the markets, because events like yesterday will attract a lot of new participants into the market. I just want you to understand this. Whenever there's been some big moves in the markets, news outlets will blast this out, and it will attract a whole bunch of new people into the market, a whole bunch of new money into the market. And big money, smart money knows that. Big money, smart money knows that new people, new money in the markets is very difficult to trade high volatility situation. What's the best way to deal with that? Whipsaw, right? A spike up, spike down, clear out that volume of the markets, essentially change that supply demand structure, and then move in the direction that you want. So anytime we've had a very big news event for that week and the volatility has backed it up, I'm always a little bit more cautious for any other item like an NFP, but I do expect big volume. And if we know what's going to potentially happen and plan for it, we can capitalize on that, right? Our job is not to predict the markets. It's not to predict the direction. It's not to predict what could happen, but it's just to map out what has happened, looked at past data, and then utilize that information to prepare a set of parameters, tools, and skills in order to execute should those opportunities arise, right? That's where our main focus is going to be. So until a little bit later, dollars for lunch is going to be at 3:15 this afternoon. We will pop out that email, the link, but the link is also available in your client's area, and we will start to stop sending out links from next week that you can go ahead and just access it within your client area. It's simple. If you're in the groups, the new groups, we will be giving that to you in the groups as well. Dollars for lunch, I do expect some movements, but I do expect the markets to remain flat for this morning. Again, if you like the euro and the pound, then we obviously have a bunch of euro and pound data that you can capitalize on. But until a bit later, until I see the rest of you in the Dollars for Lunch session. If you have that $100 in your live account, then I will see you guys then. As always, remember to live and trade the Globex 360 way. As always, be safe. I'll see you guys a little bit later.